All right, back at it. Another episode of the More to It podcast. I am the host, Jay Moore, with Hell Varsity Magazine, hellvarsity.com, and I am with another cat who rocked the number 44 at Nebraska, Jay Foreman. My man, what's up?
Not much, man. Just living this Corona life. Like that's how I like to call it. You know?
Yeah, this quarantine life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been something else, man. How you been handling it, man? With the kids at home and everything, no school. Luckily, the golf courses, we can get out and play a little golf every now and then.
Yeah, for the most part, it's all right. You know, it's you never thought that you'd transition to an impromptu teacher. With they just kind of just threw it on you to teach these kids a curriculum that you forgot.
Mm-hmm.
You appreciate some of the shows. Are you smarter than a fifth grader? I can tell you I'm not. And so it's been all right. We're hanging in there. The most important thing when you get stressed out, you realize that we're fortunate enough that everybody's been healthy. So, knock on wood that continues, and then hopefully, it lightens up here in the near future.
Yeah, it's good. How your daughter's been? I know they're living in Charlotte. So
yeah,
everybody's still good out there too.
Yeah, they're good, and we're fortunate now in this day and time that when you have FaceTime and Skype like that, you can see them, so they don't feel too far. But I will say that at the first couple of weeks, first month, they really enjoyed it, but then the good thing about it, they do miss school, and so hopefully they get to go back in the fall in some form or fashion.
Yeah, man, that's school. Everyone's back in school. College campuses are back open. We're playing football. Everything. Well, that's just the biggest thing. Where everyone's just things change. It seems like by the hour.
Right.
But it kind of seems like we're kind of seeing a little light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, there's I think what people are trying to, I think what the powers that be, they're trying to not overextend themselves on what either they hope or what they can view that can happen. I think they're probably I'm assuming they're trying to undersell overproduce, which is a good good way to go about it, because everybody, including myself, whether it's the University of Nebraska, I just want to be able to watch sports. And the funny thing about it is we should take it for granted. We're like, oh man, there's another hockey game on, right, or NBA game. Oh, it's a game, I'm not gonna watch it. Or you're just like, oh, I'll catch it another time. Now there's nothing. I can only watch so many 1986, 94, short shorts, Larry Bird. They look like they're moving in slow motion.
Yeah, I can only watch so many 2017 Byron Nelson championships on the Golf Channel, or World Series games, NFL games. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not taking it for granted anymore. I'll watch when everything's back on. I can't wait to watch. I don't care if basketball's played in some small ass arena in Las Vegas or Orlando.
Yeah.
If they're playing somewhere, who knows where they're playing hockey. I mean, I didn't watch the fight. Did you watch the fights Saturday night UFC ones?
No, but I'm gonna watch the next ones. I did tune in for ESPN to catch the highlights, and so I think slowly but surely we'll get there. There's actually, for some sports there's a rush. Obviously baseball, they never got to get started. Hockey probably, I can envision that maybe they don't come back. But as far as hopefully football, they get the kids back on campus in some form or fashion. And then obviously get some, college football and professional football. And then as we move forward, then, hopefully they come with a vaccine.
Could you imagine playing a game in an empty Memorial Stadium when it counts? Could you imagine?
I wouldn't know what to do. I mean, they always tell you you're not supposed to be motivated by the crowd, but it would be just so different. It'd be eerie. It'd be eerie.
It'd feel like a spring ball.
It'd be just a scrimmage, right? And it would. But you know what? You'd have to adjust and do what you got to do. But I think for college kids, I think it's a lot harder. It would be a lot harder. NFL guys, where you're pretty much the sole proprietor. You're an independent contractor. You have to be individually motivated. I think it would be a lot. And plus, you're mature and you know how to get yourself prepared. College kids, they're younger. Everything's not predicated on emotion, but the games in college that momentum swings back and forth in a matter of a play. So I'd be really interested to see how that affects that part of the game. The momentum changes. Does a big play really change the momentum, or is it just a big play and then okay, now we're, like you said, we're scrimmaging, kick off, we're at the 20, and see if it changes the intensity and the play calling. Ideally, if they don't have the ability to have, like, say, like a packed house, 50% would be good. If they just do like every other seed or something like that.
Kansas.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Hey, Kansas and all those Baylor back in the day, they were like, man, now you know what it feels like to have 15,000 people. I remember we had some kids on the team, when I was playing that were from Texas. They had more people at their high school games than when we go play Kansas or Baylor or somebody like that. And so it'd be an eye-opening experience. But, I think that there's a way that they could and should play football. All the other factors that come into it, but they definitely need to play.
We can sit here and speculate, but I've always been told to stay in your lane.
Yep.
And I'd be getting way outside my lane.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to predict. I mean, hey, just somehow make it happen, whether kids are on campus, whether they're going Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, something, 30,000, 40,000. We'll take whatever we can get so we can get 12 games, 10 games. I don't know what it looks like. But speaking with the quarantine talk, something that's kept me like getting through it, man. We were just talking about it a little bit before, but this Last Dance show.
Yeah.
Have you caught all eight episodes, man? And it's just because you were in college when this was all going on. I'm in elementary school, middle school, but I remember everything because just being a sports junkie, and it's just crazy hearing some younger kids like, I never knew Michael Jordan retired and went and played baseball for a little bit. I'm like, I remember like exactly where I was
when he retired. Yeah. It's brought back a lot of memories, just watching him. And I mean, obviously I knew how great he was when he played, and obviously thought about never changed. But like the first championship run, and even when they lost, because I grew up in Minnesota, so we didn't, we had the Timberwolves, but WGN was one of our like basic channels on cable, so I caught all the Bulls games and the playoffs when they would lose, to the Detroit Pistons, and he'd get beat up, and then Scottie Pippen was kind of he kind of didn't really step up until a couple of years, and so I saw Jordan his struggle. So as the first couple episodes of The Last Dance, his memories, then they broke through, and then he were retired. And I remember being like not only disappointed, I was mad at him because as a young kid, I think when he retired, 93, 94?
It was after the 13th.
Yeah, so I was just coming into college, right? Just getting recruited. So I'm thinking I'm just starting to experience.
Yeah, you're selfish because you want to keep watching him play.
Keep watching him play, and then when you're young, you're like, how he's the icon, the most famous person probably in the world at that time. As a young kid, I'm thinking like, you got to keep going. But then when you see how he was going through it, you kind of see how he was kind of worn out. Then he went and did baseball. And then it was like, oh, this is a joke. But then as he started to play baseball, because Sports Center started to kind of, start to ramp up, he actually was pretty good.
And he hit 200 in Double-A. Straight to Double-A.
Double-A, yeah. Coming right out of the basketball court.
Hadn't played baseball since he was 18 in high school.
Yeah. I mean, that's in itself is a huge accomplishment.
That's what they said. The most impressive thing that people don't. I mean, Terry Francona was his manager. Now he's the manager for the Indians, and he's like, if he could have got to 1,500 at bats, like he probably could have made it to the major leagues. He got hurt by the strike.
Right.
That brought him back to basketball because he's like, I got nothing else to do. I might as well go hoop. But
yeah, and the funny thing about it, the way things work, if there wasn't the baseball strike, does he continue along that path? Because he retired from, in my opinion, now I'll say I'm not George's, he retired from basketball for all the reasons, but then baseball was kind of like that nugget, still competitive, like he was starting over. And I think he was all in. When they talked about he'd hit before practice, hit during batting practice, obviously go in the game and then hit again.
Afterwards. Yeah.
Man, that wasn't a charity case of playing. He was on the fast track of moving up.
Yeah, I mean he said it. He's like, he had like a 13 or 14 game hitting streak his first game, and he struggled. He couldn't hit the breaking ball. Then I heard that clip. It's like, what time are you gonna be here? Talking to the hitting coach, 7:30 a.m. All right, I'll be here.
Yep.
And he said I had blisters all over my hands. Yeah. And that just shows you. But the guy was, in all athletes, you hear one person say one bad thing or one negative thing about you, and just fuels that fire.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know what? Even if it could be some Joe Blow from whoever, but it's like that's all that man needed. That's most competitive athletes. All you need is that one negative thing. You're like, I'm showing him.
Yeah, and it drove him, and then he got on I didn't even know they had off speed pitches, or
a machine.
And they said he was on that thing and would take, I think they were saying like 300 at bats. I mean, just the stamina to do it. He was obviously in phenomenal shape. So I was wondering, like, what would have happened if there wasn't the baseball strike? Because then if he doesn't come back when he does, is he too far gone as a player? Because he struggled in that first year. And then does the Bulls break up even worse, if he doesn't come back? And so, things happen for a reason. And he came back and continued on the path. But, one of the things I took from him was, his style of leadership only worked for him. If he wasn't a great player, he couldn't lead that way.
No.
And the funny thing about it, everybody's like, because I watched it with my wife, and she was like, man, dude, is that how people really are, as far as like leadership? And some guys, I said, we had a couple guys when we played that were like that. But you hated it when you went through it, but you respected the hell out of them because they worked as hard as you did and never asked you to do anything that they wouldn't do.
And Michael said that too.
Right. And he made you a better player. Because let me tell you something. He brought the best out of us. Even I give it to Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr manned up against him, right?
Straight up socked him, man.
Right, straight up, right. But it brought the best out of Steve Kerr. Look where Steve Kerr is at now. Yeah. You could look at Scotty Burrell.
See, that's funny. I didn't even know. I could go through. I knew like Cartwright, Horace. I remember all the like Scotty Burrell. Like I watched all the. Never even knew he was on the roster.
Right. Then they had. On one of the championship teams, they had John Sally, they had Edwards from there. Of course, they had Rodman. I think they had Hersey Hawkins. Craig Hodges, those guys. Obviously John Paxson and all that. So Cliff Livingston, who was like Dennis Rodman before Dennis Rodman.
I didn't even realize Charles Oakley was on the Bulls before he went to the Knicks.
In
the late 80s.
Yeah.
But they had to make their moves to get to where they were.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just you're like, damn, who the hell is Scotty Burrell? But man, MJ gave it to him.
Every single day.
And he said but you always have those guys that need that though.
Yeah.
They need a kick in the ass. Because like he said it too, he was just too nice. It wasn't like he wasn't going to work. He didn't have that
he didn't have that drive. Dog. Yeah. But then the funny thing about it is it was worth it because when they were against the New Jersey Nets and they were kind of sleepwalking, but then Scotty Burrell scored 23 points.
Yep.
So obviously, and they only won by like 4 or 5 points. So that lets you know all the usual characters didn't bring it, and he was able to step up. So did it pay off? And then of course he's a world champion. And I think when Michael saw somebody like Scotty Burrell, he probably looked at somebody that had a ton of athletic ability, and never reached his potential. So he's like, I got to get the most out of you. And it takes a big person to have that type of vision. And it probably isn't the best leadership style, but it's the best for when you're on teams like that and the guys that can handle it.
Do you think, I can't remember who had this, when I was doing radio full time with Hell Varsity, I can't remember what it was, like Jerry DiNardo it was, I played golf with him. It was the head coach at Colorado.
Was it?
Gosh dang it!
Not McCartney, but the redhead dude.
No, it wasn't Neuheisel.
Oh,
it was. Oh my gosh! I can just. I have his phone number. Anyways, I asked him. And Gary Barnett.
Yeah, Gary Barnett. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And I go. We got on the topic of leadership. That's been the biggest thing. Everyone talked getting Nebraska back to where it was, back to when you were playing, because they had the leadership. And I asked him, can leadership be raised? Can you train someone to lead like that? And he goes, yeah. And I don't think you can.
Yeah, I don't think you can.
Not like Michael.
No.
That's something like so deep inside you that you're born with. And it's honestly, he got like the I don't give what. I'm going to win at all costs.
Right.
And if I have to dog cuss you, I'm going to dog cuss you. I'm going to do whatever I got to make sure that I'm on top, whether you're coming with me or not.
Right.
And I'm just.
And his leadership, his win at all costs, isn't necessarily tied to basketball. That's why he was such a big gambler.
Hell no.
He would gamble against. He didn't care who you were.
He goes. They could be playing for $10,000 a hand in the back of the plane, but they go up with Steve Kerr and B.J. Armstrong for $1. He's like, I don't care. I want your dollar in my pocket.
Right. And so those guys are few and far between. I don't think true, genuine leadership and setting foundation for long term can be like coached, or you can like take a class. It's because leadership just isn't. Everybody that the novel person or fan thinks leadership is rah rah. You're yelling at people if they make a mistake, or you're yelling to motivate them. That's not it. It's day in and day out what you're showing them, how to be great, how to be you, and in the way you see leadership is when those guys are gone. So say like I'm a senior linebacker or a junior and you're an incoming freshman. So you're watching me and seeing how I interact with my teammates, with the coaches. You know, am I doing everything I need to do in the weight room? Am I held accountable? Am I holding other people accountable? So when you're a junior, you know, playing or starting, you're emulating what you've seen. And of course, you gotta learn how to push each other's buttons, or who needs to be patted on the back, who can take the tough love. And so leadership is something that just it's a trickle down effect, and you kind of groom it. But the true leaders are guys that will, there's always something that brings that dog out in you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because say Jason Peter, right? He wasn't the same leader as he was as a senior as he was as a redshirt.
Right.
There just comes like a training part that goes through it. So yes, you can kind of coach them through that, but it's got to be organic within the locker room. It's hard to explain, but you can't anoint somebody to be that.
Well, going back to the early episodes of that I don't remember, Michael was never always like that, right?
No, it was Oakley.
Yeah.
When he was older.
Okay. I can remember because he wasn't, because he earned the respect. He got he was crowned to put it in different terms, but I was like, I don't think he was, it's just the process.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And he had to get his butt kicked.
Yeah.
And they had to lose. He had to get embarrassed. He had to earn his stripes because, coming back from injury, and then obviously he lit the Celtics up for 63 and 49 the night before or the game before. Played a couple rounds of golf, which is, I don't know how he has some stamina.
That's what I said.
And
the dude has insane energy.
Yeah.
Off day, they're going to go play 36 holes.
Yeah.
And smoke cigars like it's nothing.
Yeah. And then
probably sip on something too.
Yeah.
And then he goes out and puts up, he plays 40 minutes.
Right.
It has 35 and 12 and 10.
Yeah, whatever he wants.
Right.
And but when you look at it, he came in and he was humble. Even though, look, he was the best player in college basketball. Obviously. Mm-hmm. He comes in and he's always talking about, I got to earn, I got to play defense. I got to do whatever I need to do in order to earn the respect of the veterans. And when you look at the Chicago Bulls back then, there wasn't anybody you needed to respect. Mm-hmm. But he did that. Then obviously he took over, from an offensive standpoint, but Oakley was there. But the thing that made Michael such a good leader was the trials and tribulations and the butt kickings that he had earlier. He never wanted to go back to that, man. I mean, losing to, getting swept by the Celtics, he didn't want to do that anymore. So he was a competitive person. And then he changed everything that he, was doing in the offseason in order to get past the Detroit. So people were questioning him. I remember, is he just is it one show man? He never passes and all that stuff. And he had to become a better facilitator and a better teammate, but he never lost his work ethic, and he wasn't going to have anybody on the team that wasn't going to work as hard as him. And why would you?
Right. I remember, I don't remember him, the Pistons, I don't remember as much, but that first finals against the Lakers, where he did that up with one hand, and I'm like, ooh. Yeah, my dad was like, that's not normal.
Yeah.
And it's like, damn. Like,
yeah. That's the equivalent of like our dads when Dr. J did the one, mm-hmm. when he went under from the behind the hoop and under. Mm-hmm. He was just a step above everybody, and he had everything that you need in order to be the best of all time. He had the size, the strength, the work ethic, and the talent, and then he had that mindset. And that mindset took him
confidence, the swag. Yeah,
right.
What do you mean?
But the best thing that he said about where his confidence came from, I think I was watching this interview with Ahmad Rashad. He was like, I put the work in. Mm-hmm. He's like, I earned it. He's like, that's where it came from. Right. It's not that he just said, okay, I'm gonna just roll out of bed and I'm gonna go out and score for it. He put in the work, because they talk about the breakfast club that they had, where they would go to his house, do full hard workouts and shooting and everything, and then go to practice.
Right.
every single day, and it was like an honor to get invited, because they talk about when Ron Harper came from Cleveland over there to Chicago. And so Jordan wasn't, and one thing I also like about him, he wasn't adverse to bringing in guys. He wasn't like petty on a professional level. So obviously Dennis Rodman probably roughed him up prior. Sally did when they were in Detroit, but he knew that they were good players. He brought them in order to win championships, and he knew that it was all business when they got on the floor. And so I think that if the harder that you played against Jordan, the more you didn't back down, the more he respected you. He didn't respect anybody that you just rolled over and let him drop 50 on you. If you gave him a challenge, he had the ultimate respect for you, because oddly enough, he liked it hard.
Yeah. I mean, the guy took a year and didn't play basketball for 18 months. Second game back, puts up 55 in the Garden.
Yeah. I mean, just imagine. I can't even imagine. That's like the equivalent of taking 18 months off in our profession of football, and you hit him up for 3 sacks, or in my case, say like I hit a team up for 15, 4 tackles for loss and like a sack. 18 months not doing it.
He comes back middle of the season. Right. When he came back in March.
Right. 3 or 4 practices. All right. You know what?
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good. I'm starting too. Okay. There ain't no coming off the bench. I'm coming right off the baseball diamond. And I'm 3 practices and I'm starting.
See, it's amazing, because I was playing golf here on this last weekend, and guys were like, "What do you think of the Last Dance? What do you think of Jordan now?" I'm like, I respect the hell out of him even more.
Right.
And some people, I think he's a dick. I'm like, if you've really known Michael,
that's already guaranteed.
That's like, you knew that. Yeah. You knew he was a fierce competitor. Kobe was the same way.
Right.
And he said it. That's why I think he got kind of emotional in that one last clip, because he was afraid of people. But it's like, man, that's people viewing him that way. But I think I respect him the most just because I appreciate it now, especially because in our day and age, in this culture, where everybody is afraid to hurt someone's feelings and say the wrong things, he did it.
Yeah.
Because he knew what was important. He knew what was best for people. And that gives you a greater appreciation just for his mindset. Right.
It takes a special, and he had, the funny thing about it, he had vision for people though. I'd say he probably was more too much of a dick to Scotty Burrell, because I think that Scotty was he didn't give me anything back, right? But you take everybody else, when they talked about when he'd come in the locker room and they got out, I think Phil Jackson talking about they got out rebounded by like 25 rebounds. So he jumped on the, Bill Cartwright, Wennington, and all them. That's the vision, because he wants you to play up to your standard, and he knows he needs you to win, and you will ultimately be okay with it when you're winning. Obviously, if they were on say like the Minnesota Timberwolves and he was like that, it's just not going to happen. And it was genuine too. And people, it probably sucked. They probably were talking to their wives and all this other stuff when they're going home. But at the end of the day, when you see them in the locker room after winning championships or on the court, all that stuff doesn't matter. Oh, man. And that's the greatest thing about it.
Did you play with anyone up to that level of his leadership?
I'd say like T. Frazier was like that.
Yeah.
T. Frazier was abrasive, but he was on the offensive side of the ball, and
because the
Jason and Christian were like that.
But the chemistry of basketball versus football, you're dealing with 5 guys on the court, 12 guys total versus 11 guys at 22 plus another 100 else on the team. It's a little different, but
I would say Jason and Christian were like that. They held everybody to a high standard. How they voiced it was how they voiced it, but you knew it was coming from a good place. I know that when we won our last national championship in 1997, our back end was extremely young, and they were giving up a lot of big plays, and we were still providing good pass rush. So I remember a few times Grant and Jason, dressing them dudes down. But that's the way it is, man. Mm-hmm. You got to think, Jason's standard and those guys' standard of defensive backs, Baron Miles, Tyrone Williams, Michael Booker, Tony Veland,
Mike Minner.
Mm-hmm. Like, they were balling to it. Like, that's just because you come in and you're a freshman and Coach D has you out there, doesn't mean that you're getting a year just to kind of figure it out. No, you're figuring it out. So maybe those guys, now in the pros,
you went to the Bills.
I went to the Bills, and I'm going to tell you something. Thurman Thomas was the closest to that.
Yeah.
And he didn't care if you were a running back, offensive lineman, linebacker. he was in your face. And if you was out there BSing, I'm telling you, his nickname is Squatty. Squatty was waiting for you. And you know what? As you know, in any other, like if a running back was waiting for us in college, you were like, man, you don't know what the heck you're talking about. He knew everything, and he could watch and see if you were playing good. Bruce Smith was a little bit like that, but Bruce Smith was more about Bruce, whereas Squatty, he was in your ass 24/7 and talked more junk. He talked junk from the time he showed up to get his ankles taped to the time he got his ankles cut off, taped off his ankles. But then during the game, there was nobody that you would rather. I just respected the heck out of them.
But those guys are it makes it's they get at you, but it's a respect though too.
Right.
And then it makes it fun,
right?
Because now your practice now you get a little more better in practice.
Right.
You go a little harder because
there ain't no days off.
You're right.
Oh, I mean the games. Like, you talking about finishing plays against Squatty? I remember one time that they'd always run this, like, no back offense because we had Flutie. So they were kind of running some more, like, I guess something equivalent to what he was doing in Canada, right? And plus he was shorter and let him see better. So, you know, we would do man-to-man, and it would be like 2 minute in the red zone. Mm-hmm. So when they put Squatty out there, they'd always run like a little slant route or like a little hook, right? I mean, they've been doing that for like 2 weeks.
Right.
Like 2 weeks. And I would always be trying to look pretty, like, you know. They would never throw it to him. They're always throwing it to, like, Eric Moulds and stuff, right? So, I'm like, we're on the left side. They're throwing it to the right. So, I get out there in the red zone. And, I always go back. I would always, backpedal and act like I was going to pick it off. Well, he ran the option route on me. Mm-hmm. Right? And they didn't throw it to him. But he was wide open. And then he told me, he said, see there, you little rookie? He's like, I done taught you a lesson. Don't but I never forgot that. Right. And one time I came on a blitz, and look, he was a Hall of Fame player. I'm just kind of going half speed. He popped me one time, but then he told me again. He's like, there ain't no friends out here. He's like, I could have knocked you out cold, but he kind of already respected, knew that I practiced hard. But then after that, we'd go at it. But he wanted it hard, and he was tough, but he was tough to play with sometimes, man. Like when we'd be in the locker room, the defense having a bad half,
let you have it.
Oh, if we were playing bad, period, like the offense was playing bad. Oh, he giving it to the offense, then he coming over to the defense to give it to the defense, and then here's the best part: he gave it to Wade Phillips. You need to coach better, right? All during halftime, and then he would go into he probably had to go take a leak or something.
Right.
Then Wade would say something. I mean, I'm telling you, here's the funny thing about Jordan, say like a Jordan. LeBron isn't that type of leader, but these type of players, right? They're always hard for coaches to coach because their standard in their mind of what their idea of excellence is totally different than anything anybody can imagine. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't matter. So their idea of standards is Monday through, there is no days off. You know what I'm saying? So Jordan pushing the people, hey, there is no off season. Like when they lost to the Knicks, he asked Tim Grover, when you want to start? He's like, I'll see you tomorrow. Yep. There you go. That's the difference. Whereas some guys was, I'll see you in a couple months. Yeah. So it's if you get past him, riding people, because if you are a true sports fan. And if you even talk about like you hear the stories about when he has like run-ins with other, I guess, quote unquote celebrities and kind of a a-hole to them. Right. Or, if you listen to Michael Rappaport, he was like, I've never met anybody, and that's the truth though. If you ain't a little kid and if say like me and you seen him, we could see him out on a golf course. I seen him one time and he said, "What's up?" But then there's like the other people say like, "Man, he was an a-hole." Yeah, I've heard that. I got buddies that are in Chicago and been around him in foursomes, and it's like. He's able to everybody. If you catch him on a bat, and that's the disappointing thing about some of, and that's just not him. Whether it's like you hear stuff about like Tiger or like and I'm sure they're the way they live their life is they gotta probably be like that a little bit. But they're probably like it too much, but they get away with it. But at the end of the day, if you just look at what his vision and what his purpose was as a basketball player, you'd have a ton of respect for him.
man, you brought up a story of popping the chin. I just remember it made me feel my scar in my rookie year. I got popped so hard. We were camping against the Raiders. Went up there and scrimmaged them for 2 days. We go up there and scrimmage for 2 days and play them like 3 days later in preseason. I'm like, this makes no damn sense.
It's stupid. Yeah, because you know all the plays.
Right. But I got run in there, rookie outside linebacker. I can't remember who the running back was. He got me so good. I was bleeding everywhere, all down. Ooh,
yeah.
I could feel it. Okay. Now we just spent a good 20 minutes because this show was so good. I mean, you
don't want to stop at 10.
No. And that's the thing is like me up till 10 on a Sunday. That's late for me.
Yeah, me too.
I'm usually
wide open too.
Yeah, I'm usually horizontal by 9.
Yeah.
I'm up in the chair, like, oh my God, like just totally caught up in it. But your path had come to Nebraska, man. Everyone with your pops being, the great Viking Chuck Foreman. By the way, when he's going to get inducted to the Hall of Fame?
I don't know, man. I hope so. I hope soon. Hope he's cognizant and upright when he does. But he definitely deserves it. It's sad because
it's a lot of
politics, and the yards and stuff guys are putting up now. It's so much different than when they played, and so hopefully he gets in. Every Hall of Famer that when we're out together, whether it's Larry Little, Larry Zonka, guys that go, that he went against. Mel Blount always say that he deserves to be in. So hopefully, the NFL, they've done a little bit more they've added a couple of those guys. You saw, Mick Tingelhoff get in. So hopefully he his number get called within the next 3 or 4 years.
He's really the first dual threat running back to really do it.
Well, up until LaDainian Tomlinson, he had the record for the fastest, the least amount of games to 50 touchdowns. You got to think, he stopped playing in 78. LaDainian was whenever but he broke that record when he had that MVP year. That was it. 50. And back then, my dad was, he was coming, he was the first to lead the league in receiving and rushing. And so he was kind of like Roger Craig before Roger Craig, and they ran more of the West Coast offense than before it kind of the 49ers took it, ran with it. But hopefully soon he'll get in, and it'll be a great boy. That will be a party though. That will be a party. I don't know if he'll be able to participate, but I'll be partying though. I can tell you that much.
Let me get the invite. I'll make my way up to Minneapolis. So your dad doesn't want you to play football growing up,
right? But
you go and raise up your own money, on your own, to go join Pop Warner.
Yeah. So it's when he played it, he didn't make a lot of money, but he always worked. So we were lower middle class, really kind of just check to check type of family. So I used to go. I had a paper route, and I used to cut lawns. Me and my best friend Jamal and our other boy Kenny. So I'd had enough money to go and try out. And I'll never forget it. My dad, it was a Saturday, and my dad was sleeping. So I got up and I had me some Frosted Flakes and rode my bike. I had this little Huffy bike. It was blue and gold. This thing was so sweet. So I rode my bike like 4 miles up the Round Lake, and I forged my dad's signature and paid my money. It was like $80-some. And that's how I got started. And I didn't tell my dad because it was like once you sign up and they weigh you and all that stuff, you don't have your first practice for 2 weeks. I didn't tell my dad for like literally to the last day because I was so scared.
Nervous.
Yeah, I was so nervous. And he didn't want me to play wasn't because he didn't want the pressure for me, but he was more or less trying to shield me away from that and the expectations. But then also dealing with, retirement and all that stuff. He probably was on the back end, dealing with some issues. And so, once he told me, he's like, you know what, if you put that much effort into going, he's like, I'm going to let you play. And he only had one expectation for me. He was like, be a good teammate and play as hard as you can. He never, ever was worried about you got to play running back or anything like that. Never, now we go out and, play catch. But he never was a helicopter parent. Only time that he ever got after me was if, he thought I wasn't playing hard enough or if I was out there showboating. That was it. And it was more just showboating. I always made sure I played hard. But the funny thing about it is is all the kids' parents would be there, like, surrounding the field. Mm-hmm. My dad would sit in his car because he just wanted to kind of just enjoy the game. But that kind of brought us close, real close together. Obviously, when you go and of course they always throw me in there running back, and all that stuff, and you had to deal with some stuff growing up. But that's how it got started. But it wasn't easy, but then once I kind of got out there and played, then he was cool with it.
Yeah, I didn't realize, so I was just doing a little research last night, just making sure I got my information, and years right, that you didn't even come to Nebraska as a linebacker.
No.
You came as a running back recruit, right?
Yeah, like a running back athlete.
Yeah.
And it was funny, though.
Because they had your picture from your redshirt freshman year up on Huskers.com.
Oh, yeah. Brother was skinny. Brother was I'm telling you, I was a hooper, though.
I was going to say, you had pencil. You had no neck. It was
I was a hooper. I was a hooper, man. I'm telling you, I truly love basketball. Mm-hmm. And it just came down to like finances, really, to be honest with you. I knew Cincinnati and all those guys were offering Wichita State, and I was
basketball?
Yeah, basketball, but I wasn't going to Wichita. And they were sending you stuff like, I think like Antoine Carr had been there. He played for the Hawks, so I used to see him, for TNT. Uh-huh. I'm like, man, I ain't going to Wichita, Kansas, Temple and stuff like that, and obviously some Division II schools. But it came down to like I wanted to go somewhere where I was getting a guaranteed education. And I was always scared in basketball, if you got hurt, they would send you home. Because you always hear about the stories, I hurt my knee, they cut you and
What
stuff.
Size of high school did you come out of in Minneapolis?
It was a big school, Eden Prairie. It was, I guess, a Class A school back then. We weren't the biggest. We were kind of upstart and, started the program kind of like me and Coach Grant. So the funny thing about it, so my dad played for Bud Grant. Mm-hmm. I played for his son. Mike Grant came from a school in Forest Lake to Eden Prairie and kind of built the program from the ground up. Then I transferred in and played there my senior year, and they've taken off. I mean, they're a juggernaut. Mm-hmm. They're always ranked in the, USA Today and sending, kids D1. So, football for me was the easy choice. Back then, they were giving out 25 scholarships, and it was easy for me. I could roll out of bed and play football, and lifting weights and all that. Those kids in Texas, they were doing all that track and all that. Yep. I remember my lifting weights would walk past the weight room to the hoops, and I would never forget. So I remember so you go to these camps, and I went to one camp, and my dad was old school. He was like, look, and there wasn't any of these camps when he was coming up in the 60s. So he was like, your tape. And so I went to one camp in Minnesota, and I remember we just played AAU Nationals. Went to the camp at the University of Minnesota. I really wanted to go. My dad was like, man, you don't need to go because he knew how this stuff. He just knew. Right. He knew the coaches. He knew it was kind of always a bunch of bull crap. And so I literally left the AAU, national championship or whatever, got off the plane. So they get you in there, make you run a 40. Man, I think I kind of jogged through the thing. I didn't think it was a big deal. Right? So I think I ran like a 4.8 or something. Just kind of it's a football camp. I was just there hanging out with some of my buddies, So then they was like, oh, this cat ain't fast. But then once we got out there and was scrimmaging, I was just smoking people. Well, then, they put that little label on you and stuff like that. And, my dad was mad. And so the funny thing about it, they hired this dude named Jim Wacker from TCU. Their assistant coach was Kevin Sumlin that's at Arizona now. Right. And I didn't know this until I got older and me and my dad was talking about it. So Minnesota was kind of not offering me or whatever. But then, Michigan State and all these other places were offering. And they called my dad. I didn't know this though. They called my dad up. It was Kevin Sumlin. My dad was like, or asked my dad, was Jay walk on?
At Michigan State?
No, at Minnesota.
Minnesota.
My dad was going ham on this dude. Hey, when I say ham, I was like, who is he talking to? Because I'm in the other room. Right. I'm like, who is he talking to like that? And he didn't tell me though. He didn't tell me. He kind of always sheltered me from all that stuff, and so. But it worked out for the best. But now we're talking about, you think Kevin Sumlin. He was coach. He was some sort of position coach. Now he's a head coach.
Uh-huh.
Dude asked me to walk on.
I bet you asked Kevin Sumlin, like, hey, you remember getting your ass chewed by?
Oh, I'm
Chuck
sure.
Foreman?
If he didn't remember that, he got selective amnesia because for 5 minutes straight, he was giving him the business. F you, you ain't.
Uh-huh.
I was like, damn. I said, whoever he's talking to is getting full Chuck Foreman treatment right now. So it's funny how recruiting, when you think about it, how much it's changed. But then some of the stories, like, because I went to Wisconsin. Like, my dad's rule was this: you ain't taking no visits unless they're giving you a scholarship. Because we had enough places to go that were going to get scholarships. So I guess he had talked to Barry Alvarez, and he was like, yeah, we're going to offer him a scholarship. Right, and so I had two friends that went to Wisconsin the year that they went to the Rose Bowl. So Jason Suttle, who I grew up with, and then Carl McCullough, who had went to Cretin Durham Hall, which is kind of they call it a prep school, but they recruit players and stuff like that, and they always are sending kids. So I get out there first night, partying and stuff. So the next day you go to Barry's house. It was laid out, So then he calls you in the office, and I've been walking in there like. It's a layup. Homeboy asked me to, like, right now we're not going to offer you a scholarship. We're going to let you know. I think I left. Well, I know I left. I went back to, like, the hotel. I went to the airport. Went home. Damn. And then after that, obviously Coach Osborne and them came in. Uh-huh. My dad gave Barry Alvarez the business too. Not as bad as Kevin Sumlin, but he gave him the business. My dad is not. I'm telling you, he did not play. He gave him the business, but he gave him Sumlin the serious business. So it's look, at that time you only had 5 visits. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I was the first kid to go to a major program outside of the Wisconsin or Minnesota in like 17 years. I think the guy before was John Alt that ended up playing for the Chiefs. He went to Notre Dame. So there was a lot of pressure on me to do it. And so my dad was, obviously trying to protect me from that.
How did you get your love from Miami? Because you're all family.
I did. So the funny thing about
your dad.
So all my uncles went there. Uh-huh. So my oldest uncle didn't. He went to Cincinnati. Then my 2 other uncles went there. And then of course my dad.
Right.
And then all of his, like I call them secondary uncles. They'd be, Hot Rod and all these, JoJo. They, growing up, right?
Right.
They all went. And so I grew up in a Miami household. They called back then. They couldn't do any they couldn't recruit you until like August. Mm-hmm. So they offered me a scholarship like say August 1st. And then I didn't hear from them for a while. I'd hear from them every once in a while. And then so I was all set to go to Miami, and then they kind of thought it was either a layup or really weren't that serious. And then I came to Nebraska, and then, my dad was upset about it. He was more mad at Miami for kind of slow playing me and yanking my chain, even though the offer was still there, but not continue to recruit me or whatever. Because I took an unofficial visit there in the summer. My dad, so, and then when I came to Nebraska, I just say, hey, look, Dad, and he trusted me on it. He loved Coach Osborne. Plus, he knew that Miami didn't do right, even though they did quote unquote offer a scholarship. So me going to Miami was a lot different than say somebody else actually recently, but has some recruiting local stuff. But so it was. We're still a Miami family, but my house is a Nebraska household.
Yeah. How you get to Nebraska and you're a kid that doesn't touch a weight, lift a weight. You came in as an athlete, running back. What? Take me through. Because you got there in '94.
94. Oh yeah, I forgot.
Give me that. So I love it because I told my story on here many times about I almost didn't know if I could make it through 5 days of 2-a-days.
Right.
My first week there.
Yeah.
And Jason told his story is waking up in the dorms and those cold ass, damp tile floors in Harper Schramm Hall. And he's like, what the hell are we doing? I need Jay Foreman's first few months there. You come in.
I didn't know I was gonna make it, man. Let me tell you something. The only thing I focused on that summer going to Nebraska was passing the 300-yard shuttle. That's it.
Yeah. That's a bear.
My best friend Jamal, he was going to play football, full ride scholarship to Morehead State, which is in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. So he would test me on it, and I would pass. That's the only thing I cared about. So I ain't lift no weights. I'm still hooping.
You should have got to that 300 shuttle with ease then.
Right, but still because you nervous though, mm-hmm. right? So I show up. I mean, there's cats from Texas and California. I mean, they yoked to the gills.
Who was in your class?
It was Eric Warfield, who was a stupid athlete. From Grant Wistrom, who was one of the greatest here of all time. Octavius McFarland, Kenny Cheatham, myself, Jason Wiltz. We had this dude named Constantine, who was like 310 pounds that ended up transferring to Cal and starting 2 years. Sheldon Jackson. We had Octavius McFarland, this dude named Dave Reddick that was from Jersey, Shevin Wiggins. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had some ballers.
Yeah, that was
but they all lift weights. I'm coming in there like pencil arms, pencil neck, porn stash. I'm just like looking like, but I knew I could ball though. You know what I'm saying? Because look, right. I told Coach Osborne this. Once I signed these papers, you stuck with me for 5 years. I ain't gonna quit, right? And then so I was like, I ain't doing no weight. So then once we had freshman camp, they'd have it introduce us to the weight room.
Right? Because this is back then. Because I think my freshman year was because they always had freshmen come like in a week early. And that my freshman year was the last year they could do that.
Right.
They changed all the rules.
So they have you go through like their Husker Power deal. Yep. So but you're going up against kids from high school, right? So now before we even start that. So I was a running back athlete coming out of high school. I always played running back. I played 3 games on defense because our quarterback got hurt, mm-hmm. right? And it was something that I always wanted to do, but I was knocking fools smooth out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Lane Kiffin, David, I think his name is David Johnson. Dave Watson won the Gatorade Player of the Year, and we played him the week later, out cold, right? But we all grew up together. Uh-huh. Lane Kiffin, sleep. Dave Watson, sleep. Lloyd Lee, sleep. That's the game. That's how I got my scholarship.
Right. Because Lane was up there because Monty was coaching.
Monty was coaching. We were ball boys together.
Right.
Me and Lane. So you always hear about Larry Fitzgerald. Me and Lane, the OGs.
Uh-huh.
You're right. But we'll even, before we get to how I got my scholarship to Nebraska, right? And Michigan State. Now, mind you, Nick Saban was there. Mm-hmm. Michigan State, Nebraska, and like Minnesota and Wisconsin, they all were there. We were playing them in the first round of the playoffs to see Bloomington Jefferson. So they had Lane Kiffin, who ended up going to Fresno and play quarterback, Dave Watson, Lloyd Lee, who was a Division I and had this big offensive lineman. So I remember we go through warm-ups and stuff, and I wouldn't say a one-man show, but I was all the other kids that went D1 were like sophomores, mm-hmm. right? So I was the only senior. So I remember we go through warm-ups, and I see, Coach Osborne, and Nebraska, Nick Saban. So I go to Coach Grant. I was like, hey, man. I was like, Nebraska, they here to see me? Mm-hmm. And he was like, nah, they here to see Lane and them. Lane, all them other kids. So he said, hey, man, he's like, if you want them to notice you, you better do something, right? Oh, I was like, oh, yeah. This is the first game you let me go both ways?
Yeah.
Oh, I hit them up for like 150, 2 TDs, 3 knockouts, and I think I had a pick, right? Next thing you know, Dan Young calling me every Monday. Hey, Jay, how did your game go? You were really good against Lane Kiffin. Coach Osborne was really impressed. So now fast forward, now I get there, right? So I got a chip on my shoulder, but I got swag out this Jay.
Hey, I already know.
You couldn't tell me Nathan, okay? I used to tell these cats, man, y'all lift the weights. This is natural. You know what I'm saying? I'm coming from Minnesota. I'm thinking this is natural, right? So Boyd Epley and them trying to get us through to do this weight program, right? So we get in there, and they're trying to show you all and stuff like that. Every time, Jay, I was like, I got to go to the bathroom, right? Hit the bathroom, I'm out. Right to the locker room. Right? Skipping out. Coach Osborne comes up to me. He's like, hey, man, they say you ain't been lift the weights. I said, Coach, hey, man, this is natural, right? I don't need them weights. I said, this slow you down, right? So, right, but mind you, when we're going through practice, we're just going against high school kids with no pads on. I think we might have half pads. We're out there just kind of, because you don't have enough linemen because it was only scholarship.
Right.
So you can't even really scrimmage. You might do like little 7-on-7. So you're out there just, I'm like, oh, this is easy, right? Man, them veterans came in. First I seen Troy Dumas, right, linebacker, 6'4", 240. swole like I don't know what, right? Then there's Ed Stewart, 6 foot, 220, yoked, right? Then there was Doug Coleman, looked like a Greek goddess. Yeah. You know, he had that tan.
Yeah, no neck.
Right? Then there was like Dante and Dwayne Harris. And then, man, I'm going to tell you, this is a funny story. So the veterans report, they had to do all the, weigh in and all that. So I just look at the media guide. And then I would just say, I remember seeing Christian Peter in the media guide. And his picture in the media guide, he was fat as all get out. His face was all swollen. Mm-hmm. It was like he was like 6'1", 350.
Right.
But he was on a scholarship. And I remember thinking, this dude's fat, right? How the hell is he on scholarship? Right? And then I was like, he ain't even he wasn't a starter last year. I was like, oh, he's garbage, man, right? But he must have been on them weights or whatever he was doing. I'll never forget this as long as I live. So all the freshmen, we were sitting there with just 8. And I was sitting on the end closest as when you're trying to go to the big meeting. Mm-hmm. And Christian comes walking up, and I remember seeing. I was like thinking, I said, man, I ain't never seen a white boy this big in my life, man. And he must have been, obviously he was tan, but he had some Daisy Dukes on, some white high tops, right, no socks, and a pink Gold's Gym shirt that was like, you know how they used to cut it?
Yeah, the spaghetti strap.
Yeah. Homeboy was so swole. Now, mind you, I hadn't been in the weight room, so I don't even really know none of the coaches.
Right.
I'd heard about Kevin Coleman and all that, because he was an Olympic dude. I ain't seen him because I'm out, right? So he comes and he cusses out all the defensive linemen, calls them like, you guys are, the P word, you guys ain't nothing, this, and this. So he look at me, right? He said, what the F are you looking at? Right? So I'm thinking like he's a weight coach, right? And so, right. So I look up to him. I said, who the hell are you? I said, you the weight coach or something? Oh, he was hell no, bleepity bleep bleep. I'm Christian Peters starting nose tackle. Dumb M&M. I was like, holy crap, right? I was like, damn, I gotta start lifting weight. Because then, like, Mike Minner was swole, Kareem Moss, Tony Veland was swole. So then we get upstairs and Coach Sam brings us all in and he's talking to us, right? So, the freshmen don't have seats.
Yeah. So he had the old one,
right?
The South Stadium one.
So he's holding me later. He talking to Grant, probably telling Grant you're going to play, talking about practice reps and all that. He gets to me last. He's like, all right, now, Chief, go to meetings. 1 seat left. Guess who I'm sitting next to?
Christian Peter.
He put his arm around me. I'm like, damn, that's all I need to sit next to this cat all year. But you know what? It taught me a lot, and I had to work double overtime, and But the funny thing about it is, I realized I could play though. We had one scrimmage. Now I was skinny. And after that, I did start showing up in the weight room.
Well, were you one of those dudes that just come on like that?
No,
once you start lifting?
I had to work at it.
Yeah.
Because, my metabolism was so quick. And then, you're sweating so much, and you're wearing these pads. And, I just, so.
I was the same way.
So, but, I would gain 3 or 4 pounds, right. But I was getting stronger, though. And so, so I had to work at it. But one thing it taught me was, I saw Christian work, and then I saw, how Troy and them worked. But one thing that I realized right away that I could play. Now, I wasn't strong enough, but I could play football. We got out in that first scrimmage when, I was on like third or, I wasn't second team, I was third team. So you were like the practice dummies against, at that time, the number one offense in the nation. And Lauren Phillips was in there and T. Frazier in the pipeline and all them. Yeah. But I held my own up. So I think in that first scrimmage, I think I hit him up for like 12 tackles, like 2 tackles for loss. You know what I'm saying? I was out there just balling, all effort. You know what I'm saying?
Well, how'd you get in a linebacker? Because
yeah. So
how'd that? Because you weren't coming. Like, how'd that? You become a linebacker?
It was funny though. So you get here, and so you knew who the tight ends were and all that. So I was an athlete. Coach Brown was like, "Hey man, I love you play wingback." He's like, you can really score. Man, I looked at Abdul Muhammad led the team with like 20-some catches, right? And I was like, y'all don't pass the ball? What's up? He's like, wingbacks play like a great role in our offense, blah, blah, blah. Blocking. No, right? I really wanted to play safety, right? Coach D was like, we ain't got enough film of you, this, and this. But I was knocking fools out. So I always kind of wanted to play defense because I saw Lawrence Phillips. I watched him in the Orange Bowl against Florida State. Yeah. And I was like, this dude's special. My dad was like, this boy is bad. And I was like, I got too far to go to catch up physically. And I knew they had I think they had running backs upon running backs and Damon and Clinton and all them. So I was like, I didn't really want to play running back because I just felt like I'd always have to be compared to my dad, and I never played defense before. I played, just sparingly. So I tried to play safety, and Coach D was like, "Nah, man, you ain't fast enough." He pretty much. He was like, "We got Octavius and Warfield, and if people don't know Eric Warfield, he's besides Randy Moss, he's probably one of the best athletes I've ever seen in my life."
Listen, I don't even remember. This is back when I was still playing pickup basketball. This is probably 4, 5, 6 years. I don't even know. And I'm now 30, about to be 37. So this is probably, I'm 30. I was still in shape. Been retired for football. I could still pick him up and be up. Listen, he would come in, not stretch an inch.
Right.
And just jump out the gym and get, I'm talking like head almost hitting the rim type stuff.
He had that Jordan hang time.
Yeah. I'm like, God dang. And he's probably, he's the same age as you.
He's same age. We were in the same recruiting class.
Right. So I'm like, you get out of here. Like
he's stupid at long arms, strong.
Ridiculous.
And so Coach D was like, we got Octavius and Warfield. So he was like, nah. And I went off on Coach D, right? I was like, man, F you, man. I said, I'm the baddest MNFer in this class, right? Hey, Jay, I came in talking. I was like, you know what? I'm going to talk junk. So then.
You still talk junk.
Right. But check this out, though. Coach Steele didn't have anybody to coach because we didn't sign any linebackers. Or we signed like Grant, And so that's who Coach Samuel was working with because we signed Grant, Travis Toline, Mike Rucker, Jason Wiltz. So he had to focus on them.
Right.
So then Coach Steele was like, I'll take him. He's like, he got wide frame, I'll take him. So that's how I got the linebacker, man. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. And you know what else the best thing was? Coach Steele didn't coach me because his group work was crazy, and I would have never made it through it. So I was a Sam linebacker. So we went with the defensive ends.
Right.
So Coach Sam was a little more chill. Kevin Steele, you was feeling ISOs from the time you got to start of practice to end. I used to look over there and I'd be like, damn.
Hey.
So then that's how I did it. And you know what? It all worked out for me because Troy Dumas started. Clint Brown was behind him. All the other guys that were in the mix just kind of never took it serious. So my whole freshman year, Coach Samuel and Troy Dumas told me, he's like, you need to get better. Every practice is like a game to you. And then I'd go in and hit the weights hard with Clint Brown, but I'd go in and watch tape with Troy. So when we went into spring ball after my redshirt year, then going into, I moved up from 7th to the depth chart to 5th. Then next thing you know, it just kind of went on from there, and then the rest is history. But I was lucky enough, like we talk about leadership, that I had a good 2 guys to emulate. I was extremely focused, and the opportunity was there. But let me tell you something, boy. Hey, you see me bebopping around in Able dorms? I'm telling you,
you were in Able. How did you get your butt in Able in the co-ed dorms?
I was lucky, and we was doing it big up in there. Hey, I had a girl.
We were all stuck in Harper. Man, they always put us in that Harper Schramm Smith. How'd you get in Able?
I don't know. I was with Grant.
Oh my.
Me and Grant were roommates. Then Grant was like, "Man, you coming in too late. You got to switch." So I switched up and moved in with Trey Gray because he was getting ready for games.
Yeah.
Once Thursday hit, it's party time. I'm hitting house parties and all that. But man, I'm gonna tell you what, man. I'll never forget. There was I don't know the girl's name, but I remember in the dorms, and I tried to talk to her, and I remember her telling me. And this is when I was still because when you first moved in the door, I was still skinny, and didn't look like everybody. She's like, "You ain't no football player." She's like, "You don't even look like a football player."
Basketball player.
Right? I was like, I'm gonna make you eat them words and stuff. But I came from humble beginnings, but it's probably the best thing for me. I had to work so hard.
Yeah, man. We're Hall of Fame induction last year.
Yeah. It came. Here's another funny story. they had my wrong email address, and then they had like my old address from like when I first moved back to Nebraska, like my physical address, and they didn't send out an email. So actually, I was actually at Firethorn chilling. It was like a Wednesday. It was me. My wife calls me up crying. I'm like, what the hell going on?
Right.
You know, like everything's straight. She's all, like, hysterical.
Right.
She's like, you made it. I'm like, made what? She's like, you made the Hall of Fame. What? Because I didn't know about it, right? I didn't get the letter.
Right.
I was like, man, stop playing around. I was like, I was on number 3. Actually, I didn't hit it in the water. I was like, hey, I gotta hit this shot, man. I ain't got to click, right? Next thing you know, I'm getting text messages from friends. He's like, hey, congrats. And I was like, dude, I don't even know what the heck you talking about. So they must have did the press release. So it was good, man. I would say, look, man, my sports career for me is there's nothing. I mean, of course, I'd like to be the best. Would have liked to have been the best of all time, but it's a cherry on top. I think more about my time at Nebraska than my 8-9 years in the league. Just because these are relationships you built, won a ton, and then you feel more obligated to your university that helped you get there. So to be in there with a bunch of those guys is the best thing that could happen.
So we missed out being teammates in the NFL by 1 year.
Yeah.
But we got to experience the great Mike
Singletary. Oh my God! I still.
Hey, we got to talk about this for me. I'll get you out in a little bit. We got to talk about Mike Singletary because you got there in 06.
Yeah.
And I got there. I was drafted there in 07.
Yeah.
With him.
Crazy.
Man.
I didn't know that he couldn't hear.
Yeah, he has.
Yeah.
He has. Yeah, he's partially. I don't know how what. Yeah, but he has the.
He was his group work was like Kevin Steele.
Hey, that was. They put. Yeah, I had experience of that first mini camp.
Man, what was it?
I was like, what? This is.
So I got
individual
there,
period.
Yeah. So they said he was so bad. Remember Julian Peterson?
Yep.
He signed with Seattle just because of Mike Singletary, because his group work was hard. I would never forget going through those shoots.
Oh.
Right. So I'd started in the league 7 years, got hurt, kind of first year coming off injury out in San Fran, finally got signed. So I didn't started 100-some games. I didn't play low and done all. You know what I'm saying? I knew I was coming in to back up, play special team. Man, we went through that shoot, and I didn't realize how short he was. So to get through there, I remember Jay. The whole right here was tore up on my helmet. He was like, Foreman, you're going to be knocked out. He's like, you're going to knock yourself out going through this shoot. Because he'd want you to get through the shoot and then make a tackle. And we did that. Then we ran the hills.
Yeah. But you had did he make you shuffle underneath there? Just back and forth?
Shuffle. Back and forth, like and then make a play.
Right.
Or make a run. Then you do form tackling. Then
you have to try to do pass drops after that, too. Your legs. Man, you look like a baby giraffe out there after getting
Derek Smith in Brick. I used to call him Brick House. Jeff Holbert was laughing. They're like, yeah, it'll get better. It didn't get better. 5 weeks later, finally, as we were trying to make the playoffs, he lightened up a little bit. But I was like, this dude is nuts. I remember, so I worked out for them, right? And so they have like their trainer work you out or whatever, and you do like some agility drills and all that. And I kind of knew they were going to sign me and Hannibal or whatever, and then
Hannibal was there with me. Good dude.
Right. So we're done. Right.
With the workout. Yeah.
With the workout. Talked to Nolan, and I don't know who the GM was or whatever, but
it was McCloughan.
Scott McCloughan. Yeah. So he had Nebraska ties, and we started talking, and he was like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "We'll grab something to eat before I run you back to the airport." Talking. He's like, signed a contract, and then I was gonna go and then be back on that Tuesday night because I think it was a bye week or something. Singletary comes out. He's like, hey, man, let's go out here and do some drills.
Oh,
right. I'm all right. Cool.
And you're showered up and everything from the workout?
No, I'm just already cooled down.
Oh, okay.
Shoes untied and everything, about to jump in the shower. You can't say no.
Right.
Man, homeboy, we didn't go through the shoot because obviously we didn't have the helmets on. We did about 50 drops. We did shuffle drills. Then he hit me with running the hill. He's like, yeah, good job. He's like, I'll see you in a couple seconds. I'm like, dude.
Hey, listen, when he took over as head coach, that first offseason, you got those extra practices, extra mini camps and OTAs because you had the head coach. We did so many hills. Listen to this. So during mini camp, it's just a normal practice, right?
Right.
You condition before for 45 minutes.
Before practice?
Before practice. And then you'd go practice because he goes, his big thing was you got to find your second wind. You'd be tired. He's like, so you'd be out there doing like county fair, like 6 stations.
6 stations, yeah.
Doing like on the turf that they had out there. Then you'd went over to the grass and you go through a normal practice.
Right.
You're there for 3 hours.
Right. I remember.
And dudes be like, I remember, Justin Smith just came in the year before, and he's like, "What's going on?" Like, he's like, "I've never seen anything like this before."
Nobody.
It's like, what is going on? Like, the dude that year we had 50 some practices in training camp. I think 48 of them were without pads, and they're like the days you had walkthroughs before preseason games.
Yeah, he was nuts, man. It was just. There's no way they practiced like that when they were in Chicago. No way. He just was just so extreme. He knew the game and could motivate you, but it was like I was like, man, how you guys even play games?
Well, that year they got off to a really good start, but they could not finish. I think they finished 8-8.
Yeah,
like they got up to like
I remember
6-0 start.
I do remember
good,
that. Yeah,
like,
and then he just went downhill. And
that training it was.
I
got cut coming out of that year, but man, I had to bring that story up. I had this down in my notes because there's so many notes I haven't got into because we've been going for an hour. But we were just out on the golf course the other day, and you said we were talking about players and good football IQ, bad football IQ. But let the listeners know that Nebraska fans remember this play for history. Jamel Williams safety.
Oh yeah,
versus Florida.
Because of Florida, yeah,
was not even supposed to happen.
He wasn't even supposed to blitz. But the funny thing about it, when they went empty, we had a check that we would always do, and he was obviously covering somebody man to man. Jamel was a great player, but sometimes you get excited, and we were there was blood in the water, so we always wanted Terrell Farley to blitz. One, because Terrell was excellent at making big plays, but two, you had to make things a little bit easier, to accentuate it, his playmaking ability. But Jamel went, and there was nobody to block him. Hey, I compare it to when Bill Parcells, when they had the LT thing for Lawrence Taylor, when he blitzed against at that time the St. Louis Cardinals, and Bill Parcells told Bill Belichick, "Well, looks like we got a new blitz." So, the play that, when Jamel got the safety, he wasn't supposed to blitz, but the good thing about it, he made the play. But if he didn't, homeboy's still running wide open. But, that's just there's so many plays that happen that year that when you have players that make plays and the competition is so thick, you're gonna complete those plays.
Yeah. I mean, that's just, that's good because that was the first time I heard it. But, I mean, you talk to anyone, they know that safety, Jamel Williams, safety.
Yeah, it was busted
cover. You know that immediately.
Yeah.
Like, no, that was supposed to happen.
Empty, running back motion, empty your side, you got it. Right. I'm hot. I'm good. hey, when you get there that quick as he did, there ain't nobody going to get him.
Danny Warfel didn't have
he didn't have a chance. And he had been getting hit all game.
Yeah.
His reaction time, he was already seeing ghosts out there. So it's, I'm glad it happened.
Yeah, okay. Always got to end my podcast with my 3 and out questions. If someone makes a movie about Jay Foreman, who plays you?
Oh, man. That's one of the best questions I ever had. Who plays me? It'd probably be I'd say somebody like Denzel could play me because he talks some junk, but I'd probably have to say maybe Dwayne Johnson because he's got some sort of football background.
All right, you got one concert to go to. They can be dead or alive. Who you going to see live?
Damn, live. I'd probably say Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
But I'm going. No, I'm gonna take that back. I want to go see Sting. He's one of my favorites of all time.
Yeah.
He doesn't tour in North America, probably won't. But I'd definitely be Sting if it's somebody that's present day. I'm definitely.
You a Prince guy?
I am Prince, but I've seen him before.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Maybe Metallica too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my buddies, they always get mad at them because they come to Minneapolis all the time. And they never tell me till the last minute.
Favorite movie? Last question.
Heat. Yeah.
Heat. What's up?
It's with you gotta watch it, man. And we
Al Pacino?
Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. So they're bank robbers and they do jobs and
I've not seen that.
It's good.
You see all like the Pacino. And,
yeah.
You
so
don't miss too many of the De Niro Pacino movies.
We saw it night before the game in Nebraska.
Uh-huh.
When we're here, we go to Friday night to the movies. So it's a great movie. That's my favorite movie of all time.
All right, man.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
That was good. That was a good little over an hour.
Yeah, man. It goes by quick, right?
It does. We could have kept going, but I know we got some other things to take care of. All right, guys. That's it. Another More to It podcast. Hail Varsity Magazine. HailVarsity.com. We'll check you out next week. Thanks.